Hey there, this is Kelly Sinkowski, and we're shining the spotlight on Virginia's redistricting referendum. On April 21st, voters will decide whether Virginia will draw the line for new districts. Joining me today is Ken Lecky with the Fredericksburg Democratic Committee. Ken, how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm great, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. For viewers, we invited people on the Republican and Democratic side at all levels of local leadership, delegates, and senators to take their time and just chat with us about this referendum. So, can you tell me a little bit about your involvement with the Fredericksburg Democratic Committee?
Sure. I'm the current chair of the committee. I've been chair since 2022. So we work to get Democrats elected here in Fredericksburg and across the state as well as far as we can. We work in our community to represent our values and take care of our community as best we can through our committee. Our members are, Fredericksburg is such a small, involved place. Our members are in all sorts of groups that have different involvement in the city and really help this place run. So we're glad to be a part of that.
And when you have a special election, essentially, like we have for this redistricting proposal, what kind of activities do you guys do on the local level?
Yeah, anytime there's an election, our committee's involved. We try to get information out to our members and out to our community. If folks who are involved with us will go out and knock doors for campaigns or for candidates. We've always got a presence at the early vote and on election day, trying to help people get information. We'll talk to community groups. We try to be out in the community as much as we can just to help people understand whatever the issues are that we are promoting. Sometimes these things are really complicated, and there's all sorts of dates and times involved and requirements. So we try to do what we can to help people get informed, get registered to vote, and get involved in these campaigns if they want to.
Perfect. I'm going to take a second to share the ballot language so people can be reminded what we're talking about. The question on the ballot is, should the Constitution of Virginia be amended to allow the General Assembly to temporarily adopt new congressional districts to restore fairness in the upcoming election, while ensuring Virginia's standard redistricting process resumes for all future redistricting after the 2030 census? So, Ken, let's ask you, what is a fair map?
Well, that's a good question. The maps that we currently have in Virginia were drawn by a panel of judges after our bipartisan redistricting commission that we established in Virginia couldn't come up with a map. So we officially have a bipartisan redistricting process in Virginia, but so far it hasn't resulted in any maps. So some judges came up with it, and that sort of ended up being a nonpartisan process for that. But what Virginia has the opportunity to do now is not just think about what the maps look like in Virginia, but what's going on in the rest of the country. We've all heard, I'm sure by now, that the Trump asked Texas, North Carolina, Missouri, Ohio to all find extra seats for him in the midterms. Because I think he and most people don't think this is going to be a good midterm election for the Republicans. I think the vast majority of this country wants there to be some check on the power of this administration. So the sort of unfairness that's happening across the country, these legislatures put through change to their maps in between censuses, which is just really, really unusual, and didn't give their voters a chance to weigh in at all. States like California and Virginia, we have these constitutional amendments that set up a process, and so we have to go to our voters. So California passed an update through their voters to do essentially what we're trying to do too, which is
Mhm.
offset these other states that are ramming through these changes to their districts, in many cases over the will of their voters. Um, we can balance things out with the help of states like California to to what we think is help balance things and then set that playing field level so the rest of the country can have kind of standard midterm elections, which we think will be successful in putting a check on the administration. That's what everybody, the vast majority of people want. But this is kind of an unusual way to get to, I think, a big picture fairness, even though it's an unusual thing to do here in Virginia.
There are some voters who will say that they believe both parties will take advantage of the opportunity to do redistricting based on what's going to benefit their own party politically. How do you respond to that?
Well, what I like about the language in this amendment is that it says right in there that it's temporary, right? It is only, and it also says it's only in response to what has been happening across the country. So the trigger for it was these other states redistricting outside of the normal census process, and it only goes through until after the 2030 census when our redistricting commission comes back in and does their job just like they did last time. So that's an important part of it, is that it's baked in that it's temporary. There's an end date to it. It's right there in the amendment. And the um, other part of that is the Democrats, if you've been watching the last couple of years in Congress, the congressional Democrats have been trying to outlaw partisan gerrymandering across the country. So that would be a way to stop this sort of countrywide. It would all be simpler if nobody could have done this. You know, if Texas hadn't started it, California didn't have to respond, and we didn't have to respond. uh, I think we'd all be better off. I think we're doing what we have to do now, but I think in the long run, the best thing is to get more Democrats elected to Congress and the Senate, and we can actually outlaw partisan gerrymandering across the board.
Well, so you mentioned that kind of response to partisan gerrymandering, and if I understand correctly, Virginia's current system is designed to be nonpartisan in the districting process. So I think that's one of the questions people have is that if one state redraws their maps in a way to benefit a specific party, it could create a pressure for other states to respond to that. Do you think this is Virginia's role in addressing this sort of broader trend of redistricting that we're seeing?
Well, I'm not sure it's a broader trend, and I hope it's not. You know, I hope this was all sort of kicked off from the Trump administration, and I hope people see all this trouble that has happened because of this during this election. We'll get through the midterms. I'm hopeful that there won't be more of this. You know, there are other states that put in processes like Virginia did, and it's much harder to change that process than it is for a legislature to just push through some changes, right? So I'm hopeful that the processes that states put in place when there was more of a push for this a couple of years ago, I hope it gives other states pause. I think it's the effort that this is taking to go through in Virginia and it took in California, I think is it suggests that it shouldn't be an easy process and it's not an easy process to do this redistricting in states like
Mhm.
ours. Um, and my hope is that this is sort of where it ends. We'll see. Obviously, any state that can do it can do it. And I don't think the voters and the rest of the country want to get involved in this if they don't have to. But just the way the numbers are working out, there were, you know, four Republican states who pushed this through, and it's up to a couple of democratically leaning states to correct that and level it if we can, and then kind of get back to normal for everybody else.
Mm. And then what are you hearing on the local level from people who have already voted or are going to vote about how they feel about this?
Feelings are complicated on it. I think the predominant feeling I'm hearing is that people are we're looking for a way to do something, and they're glad to hear that the Democrats have made a choice, made a bold choice to do this and to try to fight back for Virginia and for the country. Um, you know, a lot of these people voted for the redistricting amendment a couple of years ago. Plenty of elected officials who supported that redistricting amendment are also supporting this amendment. You know, Delegate Joshua Cole, Governor Spanberger, these are all folks who fought hard for bipartisan redistricting. And now they understand what the stakes are in this election and are also fighting for this amendment. So I think that kind of language people understand when they see the trusted people in their party fighting for these things and they understand the nuances of it. You know, people are confused by some of the mailers and some of the texts that people have gotten from, you know,
Mhm.
there's a political action committee that's opposed to the amendment, and they've sent some really dishonest mailers and some texts suggesting that all sorts of people are against this amendment who actually are for it. So I think that's a big part of what we're doing is trying to get the word out about correcting that misinformation, showing people that, Barack Obama, Abigail Spanberger, Joshua Cole, they're all in favor of this and are publicly supporting it. So you can feel comfortable doing that too.
Yeah. And then I guess kind of there's one thing that you want voters to know before they go to vote about this redistricting proposal. What would it be?
Well, if I can squeeze a couple in, the things I want people to know are it's temporary. It is just for this couple of elections before the next census. It's what the Democratic Party is supporting in Virginia. So if there's any question about, the information you're getting from other sources, this is supported
Mhm.
by the party. Um, the and last day to vote is April 21st. You can vote early before then. I think that's really important too. I'm a huge fan of early voting. If you've got a mail ballot at home, you can bring it into your registrar's office and drop it off. You can vote up until the April 18th is your last day to early vote. So that's my couple crammed into a single thing.
Perfect. Well, Ken, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today and share your perspective on this vote. For all of our viewers, I want to remind you this is part of a series of interviews where we're talking to people from both sides of the aisle about Virginia's redistricting ballot. The last, as Ken said, the last day to vote is April 21st, and make sure you tune in to see what other people have to say about this referendum. Thank you so much for your time today, Ken. I hope you have a great day.
Thanks so much. Thanks for covering this issue. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.